Hi, my name is Brooke. Right now, all you know about me is my name and the name of my talk, unboxing, unlabeling, and just living. You may have read my bio or not, and you can possibly infer things about me from the way I'm presenting myself in front of you today. But again, that's all you know. I'd like you to take a moment now, whether you are here personally or virtually, and come up with some labels for me. Where in your brain would you place me? What shelf do I belong on? What box do I fit in? Now turn to the person next to you or in front of you, someone you didn't come with, and I invite you to do the same thing. Answer the same questions. Where do they belong? What labels do they get? Notice what you just did. You internalize an action that you do regardless of whether you are asked to or not. We are human beings and our brains create categories. This is in order to help us process life. But I'll explain more on that later on. When I walk into a room, when I stand up here in front of you, I walk in with all my labels. I walk in as a white, Jewish, female, American. Some of who I am gives me privileges, and other parts of me puts me in a minority. Being a white and American gives me privileges, but being female and Jewish puts me in a minority. Each additional label ascribed to me changes the entire essence of who I am. I'm going to share something with you that might change what you think of me. I was brought up in America, but I didn't speak English. I was living in America, but not as an American. My childhood began in an ultra-Orthodox Hasidic Jewish home, where I didn't have the experiences most Americans had. For instance, we didn't have a TV, for that would have exposed us to the outside world. We didn't play with children of the opposite gender because that would entice sexual thoughts. My body was completely covered up at the age of 3 with tights that covered my legs, skirts that went well past my knee, shirts that covered my collarbone and elbow, and hair that was pulled back. I, along with everyone in this community, was expected to follow these guidelines, for if not, it was said to be going against God. The roles of each person in this community are prescribed from birth. People are put into boxes and stripped of any individuality and choice. As a male in this community, you're expected to spend more than half your day, 6 days a week, studying and learning sacred texts and Jewish law code. At the age of 18, you are married off and expected to make a living for a wife and child with 0 secular education. Females in this community do get some form of secular education. However, at the age of 18, they are expected to abandon said secular education and start producing children, one kid after the next, after the next. My aunt, for instance, has 17 children, and each one of those has 6 at the moment. That means that my aunt has over 100 grandchildren. What would you do with 100 first cousins? So, what changed from 3 minutes ago? How would you label me now? Did you think that a girl who was raised like that would have close to a dozen piercings, would be wearing pants, would be standing up here, would be talking to you right now? So if you lost so much of who I am with your preconceived labeling and notions, why do you label? Why do we all label? We label because our brain has so much to process. Neurons are constantly firing and sending signals back to our brain, like the texture of our clothing on our skin, whether we're walking in the mud or on concrete, the conversations we're a part of or the ones we overhear. Our brain just needs a break. It needs to not focus on what fabric our clothes are made of and just notice that we're clothed. It needs to see that we're walking on flat or uneven ground and disregard what the ground is actually made up of. It needs to tune out the white noise and just be present in the conversation it's a part of. Our brain just needs a break. And the way it gets this break is by labeling. The boxes our brains put things into can be so confining, but there is a beauty and an ease to them. They help us focus on what we need to focus on. They help us be fully present in each moment we experience. So, going back to the community I come from, these labels can be so confining, but the beauty and ease translates there as well. When my grandmother was sick fighting cancer, There was a role for each person in the community to play at every moment in their lives. One person would make sure that my aunts and uncles who were young at the time had rides to and from the hospital. Somebody else would make sure that there was dinner prepared for them every night. And another member of the community would be out there raising money to help pay medical bills. Each person had an action. There was a status quo that could not be messed with. And that's why people stay. They need the predictability, and they feel held by the safety of it all. It's like if any of you were to go to your favorite restaurant, you know where you like to sit, you know your favorite waitstaff, and you know what you like to order. Now, imagine one day you had a really difficult day, and you go to your favorite restaurant for some comfort food, but everything is different. The booth is in a different spot, a new waitstaff member introduces themselves to you, and you have to order something new. It's not like you don't want any options, but you came for the predictability and you want the comfort of it. Many of you here today are students. I find it fascinating how, on the first day of class each semester, you walk into a room and you pick a seat. Maybe it's near the window or the wall, maybe near an outlet, the front, back of the classroom, or maybe it's smack in the middle. You pick a seat and you label it as your own for the hour and 20-minute lecture you're about to sit through. 2 days go by, you walk into the same classroom and you pick the same seat. No one told you you had to sit there, but you still chose that seat. I know I do this. I walk into a room and I get really frustrated when someone sits in my seat. So why should we change? Why should I change? Why should we all change? We change because the only constant in life is change. We change because a really tall kid sits in front of us. We change because our menu items change, or because we're destined to be brought up in a community that takes away our voice, a community that is meant to hold our hand but won't let us let go. As Anais Nin said, and the day came when the risk to remain tight in a bud was more painful than the risk it took to blossom. We need to leave our protective environments, change our seats, find our voice, and blossom. Because we have no other choice. Because we aren't stagnant, because we change, our labels change with us. Sticking a label onto anyone and anything takes away from the intricacies of the human experience. If I stick to the labels given to me at birth, I would lose the 20+ year journey of my life. I would lose how I got from there to how I got here. I stand before you as a computer and engineering student involved in religious and Greek life. But had I continued to live my life with the labels prescribed to me at birth, I would be married off with 1 or 2 children by now. So, how do we live in a world where labels help us process life, but in labeling, we lose the true essence of what life really is? When you guys were walking into this room and writing on your name tags, I asked you to give some labels to yourself and to others. If we all stuck to those labels, to the labels others give us, but more importantly, to the ones we give ourselves, we would be nothing else but those. We would be spoiled, talkative, quiet, weird, awkward. We would be nothing else. So today I challenge you, just like the classroom seat, bud, or restaurant, it's easier to label and move on. But in doing so, we are losing out on the human experience. We are losing out on the journeys we embark on every day. So the next time you meet someone, I encourage you to stop your brain for 5 seconds. Notice how desperately it wants to put them in a box, but don't let it. Get to know the person for who they are presenting themselves to you as, and not who your brain thinks they should be. Get to know them for who they truly are. Because after all, wouldn't you want someone to do the same for you? I know I would. Thank you.